This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
He's in the building!
Drink the moment. Drink it.
I said empty your mind.
Coquettish and coy. Ow. Ow.
What?
And there's people that are dying.
The wickedly talented.
More than great. It was historic.
Crack is
World.
Oh, good for you.
I have to apologize.
One of the hottest.
Welcome back to The Reheat, a podcast that re-examines the wildest celebrity news and scandals of yesteryear and asks, how would we react to the same events if they transpired today? I'm Sarah Sahagian.
I'm Snap Hassan, and this week is another hot off the press. That's when we do a tiny little episode that discusses the craziest headlines we can't stop talking about. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm going to run through a couple quickies. Okay, Sarah. Here we go. Couple baby news items. So Kate Bosworth and Justin Long had their first child via surrogate. Yes, if you didn't know, these two are married and actually have been together for a very long time. It's a little bit of a surprising couple. And in other baby news, Pete Davidson, yes, is having his first baby with Elsie Hewitt, which means good dick is off the market. I'm assuming that it's good dick, and that's why he gets around. Sarah, did you think this man would ever go off the market? Are we shocked?
Shocked? No, I think he will probably have children with several women, right? I don't think he's off the market for good. And this is not because this is no shade at Elsie Hewitt. I think, I don't actually have that many feelings about her. I think she's probably a nice person, and I'm not wishing this on her. But I think that if you partner with someone like Pete Davidson, I'm hoping you're self-aware enough to know, like, this is going to be intense and short-lived, but maybe she thinks he'll be a genuinely good dad. And, maybe he will be. You can be a good dad and not have a relationship with the mom that's romantic forever. So I don't know. Maybe it's more co-parenting. I have no idea. I hope she's self-aware about this because I just don't see him being a one-woman man forever. What about you?
I feel like if you are out in the world and you don't live in a cave, then you know that this guy is temporary. But I will say, for some reason, my spirit says he'll be a good dad. I don't know why, but he's always talking about family. He had a really close relationship with his dad, who also passed away during 9/11. He talks about it a lot. He just sounds like a bit of a family kid. And I don't know. It gives me good energy. Maybe it'll help him settle down. Not that he should, by the way. We're very sex positive here. Get what you want to get, Pete. Congratulations. Congratulations. Okay, finally, for our little quickies, we haven't heard from Emma Watson in a while. I think it's safe to say she's probably retired with her Harry Potter millions. And we actually do know she's currently studying creative writing at the University of Oxford. But there's bigger news here. She's banned from driving. That's right. It's been a slow news week. Very slow news week. This was like super buzzy everywhere this week. She got a 6-month driving ban after speeding at 38 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-hour zone. How about that? And because she already had 9 points on her license. Sarah, are we shocked by this? Are we going to be staying up thinking about this?
No. This actually happened to a family member I have in the UK, like to a distant uncle. It's actually very easy to lose these points and not even realize it. I think it has to do with the fact that they film you everywhere in the UK. You're always on camera. So he did a bunch of speeding a few times, I think in the same week. And then almost got his license suspended, not quite. And their speed limits are much lower than ours. So like, as much as I think everyone should drive safely, this is not like getting a DUI. And it's not really like it's not like a North American reckless driving charge. They have different norms in the UK. They're more cautious, which I support. I support this as a law. But a lot of people would get into a situation like this in the UK who it would not happen in North America. She's not like a debaucherous celebrity. And frankly, it's not newsworthy, right? Like the UK likes to give you a slap on the wrist for very minor behavior because, and this is fair, and I like this, they have higher standards for drivers. I am okay with it. I am fine with it. I'm just saying, like, it does not change the way I see her. What about you?
It's also cracked me up because I feel like the paparazzi there, as we know, who are very vicious, probably waiting for her to make a mistake in any way, and this is what they catch. Like, you know, in the OOs, it was like an upskirt shot when a woman would be going into the club at night, but now it's like, we got her speeding on her way to school to study.
At Oxford, at one of the best universities in the world.
Yes.
Exactly. You can't win. You can't win, right? Like, anyway, Emma, please slow down when you're driving. But honestly, this is a mistake that is not that hard to make, especially if maybe she's also used to driving in Los Angeles and it can be a little bit jarring. It's not just the different side of the road. There are lots of other UK driving rules that you have to remember.
There you go. There you go. Okay. We got to dive into our biggest, most favorite line of the week. I'm going to put a link in the show notes so you know what you need to see. Go look at that before you listen to what we've got to say if you haven't heard about it already. Okay, here goes. A kiss cam at a Coldplay concert near Boston happened to zoom in on a couple this week very clearly together. They got spotted on the kiss cam, freak out in massive panic, and quickly unwrap each other, run off, hide their faces. What's hilarious about this too is that frontman Chris Martin immediately comments, either they're having an affair or they're really shy. Chris was correct. The internet quickly discovered the couple are co-workers, Andy Byron and Kristen Cabot, both married. Andy also has 2 kids. He's the CEO of a tech company called Astronomer, while she runs the entire HR department, which is also a fun little irony. And also another interesting fact, page 6 resurfaced a report claiming Andy has been previously abusive to his employees. So it seems everyone at Astronomer, the Slack messages must be going insane all week, I have to assume. Sir, you texted me immediately when you saw this. What was going through your head?
Okay, I think what's going through my head is that society has become stupid, right? People have been having affairs for as long as marriage has existed. So be a little bit strategic, right? I don't think I would invest in this person's company because he's not a strategic thinker, okay? You don't go to a Coldplay concert. I don't care where you're going to a concert with your affair partner. Even if it's not where you live, you could run into someone you went to university with. They have social media. They'll realize that's not your wife, right? I don't know. Just cheat in private. These are people who can afford hotel rooms. It just is so stupid, right? And here's the thing, like, we don't know the full story. It could be that his wife kind of turns a blind eye. It could be they're monogamish. It could be they're fully open. But even if you are monogamish or fully open, you don't want to be humiliated by your primary partner and for them to become a meme of ducking. So I just feel really bad for everybody in this man's orbit. The ducking was hilarious, though.
So funny.
Like, so is he just not very smart? How did he become a CEO of this tech startup? He's just not a bright person.
Somebody was pointing out on social media that if they hadn't immediately panicked and run off, nobody would have even heard about this, right? It wouldn't have gone around. Another interesting fact, though, that dispels one of your thoughts. So Andy's wife, she actually changed her last name on Facebook from his last name to her maiden name after the news came out.
Okay.
So she's definitely pissed.
I would be just as mad if my husband got caught doing this, if we had an open relationship, as if he was cheating, because it's the humiliation. Because if you have an open relationship, but people don't know, you're not publicizing it, you do want an element of discretion, right? Whatever it is. I'm just saying, we don't know what their marital arrangement was. Some people are willing to turn a blind eye or are okay with affairs as long as there is some respect. But if you're like canoodling with someone in public, that's not respectful, right? Like that's
totally
you're going to get caught.
You're right. You're right. The other interesting thing to me is that they're coworkers and he is the CEO. She herself has a pretty top job. So I feel like if you're doing that, listen, I'm not opposed to shitting where you eat. I've done it many times. I know it's a mess. I think if you're going to do it, you got to be really discreet. You got to be really careful. Like his employees, is there going to be respect for him after this? How are things going to shift in the workplace?
It's funny because Coldplay, is so milquetoast as a band.
know.
And then this went down at a Coldplay concert. You're cheating with on your wife at a Coldplay concert? Really? Like, I'm sorry, that's just not, no offense to Coldplay, but that's not like sexy. That doesn't scream like wild and crazy affair, right? And I assume that's what Chris Martin thinks the kiss cam is safe, because I think in his mind, he's like, who would do this at a Coldplay concert?
No, I mean, it doesn't get whiter than any of this, that you're at a Coldplay concert having an affair with your head of HR. But also, let me just say, okay, so I am a Coldplay fan. We've mentioned this on previous episodes. Sarah, not so much, right? More in recent years. I also fallen off more recent. They're fine. So I used to love him a lot. I love Chris Martin, but he's really gotten a mouth on him right now during this tour run. What I really like is they were in Toronto a couple of weeks ago doing a big series of shows. If you don't know, they did them at Rogers Stadium, which is a brand new quote unquote temporary stadium. It's a bit of a shit show. Apparently the seats feel like bleachers. There's no decent transit going in and out of the arena. There's only like a couple of bathrooms. It was a mess. Now Coldplay was only the second show that was there, and each show he made like some kind of sassy comment about like, where the fuck are we? The stadium is in the middle of nowhere. Be careful. Everyone was dying laughing, and I had to chuckle when I saw that this happened at a Coldplay show, and Chris Martin called it out. Chris is living a new life post Dakota Johnson breakup.
He has more of a personality than I realized. He's getting older, in his middle age. He's becoming authentically himself. Go Chris, right? Like, I am enjoying this personality that we are seeing from him. I'm loving it. But anyway, I'm just cheating on your wife at the Coldplay concert.
Come on.
At least go to a residency in Vegas, right? Like, I don't know. Just, because then you get a little trip too. So I don't know. I'm just saying also this woman should have, like, if you're going to have an affair with your boss, and it might not even have been completely consensual, right? Like, maybe she's got a mortgage, maybe she's got commitments, right? Like, I'm speculating. I'm just saying that if we think that executives can't be sexually harassed, that's not true. You absolutely can be, right? Because we have no idea what somebody's situation is, how many people they're supporting, how badly they need their job. The economy is rough out there, guys, right? So I'm hoping everything turns out okay for the families. And I mean, I'm hoping he's nicer to his employees now that he's had this humbling experience.
I mean, I'm also curious, and certainly not the president or the PM, but is this going to be one of those situations where he has to step away for a bit because this is such a moral quandary? I hope not, because I don't think these kinds of things actually should impact the workplace. But because they are both coworkers and they've got these top positions, I'm so curious how things are going to unfold at this tech company.
You know what? I was listening to an interview. This was on Sophia with an F when I was doing my research for Call Her Daddy with the chief strategy officer of Ashley Madison. And he made a really good case for Ashley Madison because he was saying, okay, our chief competitor is the workplace, right? Because that's where people meet affair partners. You don't meet your affair partner typically on Tinder because you get caught, right? Single friends see you. I know someone who that's how she found out her partner was cheating, because her friend saw him on Tinder. So he was not being smart. So you will get caught. If you're a smart person, you don't use Tinder to have an affair. So the chief strategy officer of Ashley Madison was saying, like, listen, the CEO, a past CEO of McDonald's, was fired for having a consensual affair with one of the senior staff at McDonald's, right? One of the corporate staff. And it was just because shareholders thought, we don't trust your judgment anymore, right? So in the current day and age, I'm just saying, if you're going to have an affair, I thought this man made an excellent pitch. Ashley Madison, if you want to sponsor us, you can. I'm just saying, I'm not advising people to have affairs, but that was an excellent pitch. It does speak to your strategic powers of thinking and to your discretion, because here's the thing. They're both lucky that if it wasn't harassment, they're both lucky that it was consensual. The next time you hit on someone, it might be harassment, and then there's a lawsuit. So I understand why shareholders say, if you are a top executive, not if you are a lower level employee who's just starting out. If you're a top executive, we don't want to pay the lawsuit. If you have an affair, I don't care if it's a consensual affair, you're out.
Well, it's really fascinating insight from Ashley Madison of all places, but I guess that adds up quite well. Okay, interesting. So we're not going to stay on top of this. If any more news comes out, we'll report it to you. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. And we're back. Next up, the Emmy nominations dropped this week with a lot of love for the typicals. So Severance, The White Lotus, obviously, but then also The Studio, The Pit, yay, and The Penguin. I was personally very happy to see that The Studio got so much love because I love Seth Rogen and that's his new show. Also Noah Wiley, that man I have such deep raw love for since ER, so that's exciting. Sharon Horgan, and you'll agree with me on this one, but Somebody Somewhere's Jeff Hiller, who is so wonderful in that show. That was so underrated, I feel like. I was personally surprised that there was no love for Apple's Your Friends and Neighbors, because it's very much like an Amy Beatty show. Very glossy. And I was also surprised that Nobody Wants This and Paradise picked up so much love. Paradise is quite terrible, I have to say personally. Nobody Wants This I didn't love, but I can understand why it could be seen as a pretty solid sitcom, I think. Just not Emmy-worthy, in my opinion. But Sarah, I want to hear what you think. What were your favorites? What do you feel like got snubbed? Tell me.
So how is Penguin not nominated for limited series, but Sirens is? Same thing with Disclaimer, not nominated for limited series. Excellent piece of television, great cinematography, stars Kate Blanchett. Like, it is a beautiful piece of cinema. What is happening with the Emmy voters? Why do they have no appreciation for production values? I don't get it.
Well, we got to make this disclaimer, no pun intended, every time. Listen, we know that basically any Emmys, Oscars, whatever you're talking about, it's never really about the actual talent and quality. It's more about what's buzzy. It's more about what's doing well. It's more about the names.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what happened here. I have to say, also, we know category fraud is a thing. A lot of shows will submit them. They have to submit themselves for the category they want to be considered in. And sometimes they'll fudge it a little bit so that can have a better chance of winning. That, which is why sometimes when you see a supporting actor or actress suddenly in lead or a lead suddenly in supporting, that's why.
Hacks did that with Hannah Einbender.
Yes.
She and Jean Smart are co-leads, but Hannah is nominated for Best Supporting Actress and Jean Smart is nominated for Best Actress. And I think they were worried that it's a competitive year. There are lots of great, especially female performances. If you're a woman, it's really hard to get your nomination, even if you're amazing. If you're a man, not so much. It's not hard. I'm just saying, not this year. Adam Brody, you seem like a delightful person. Why are you nominated for an Emmy? Like, I'm just sorry. Like, for being charming? Like, I don't know. Like, let's have a separate award for being a charming person.
I love that because I totally agree. And listen, I love Adam Brody. I've loved him since the OC. But you're right.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. How is he's might get an Emmy. His wife, who's an amazing actress, doesn't have an Emmy. This is why it's so much harder for women. And his wife is playing the mother of a 28-year-old and she's 39 and he still gets to be the male lead and the sex symbol. So I just think that they're an interesting case study in sexism in Hollywood. And if I were her, I don't think I could be married to him anymore. I don't want them to get divorced. I just think it would be too triggering to see him every morning.
Sarah, she loves him too much. When he was nominated for a SAG award, she was crying. Okay, these two are in love. And by the way, we're talking about Leighton Meester. He's married to Leighton Meester. What do you think of Kristen Bell also getting a nomination?
Okay, here's the thing. I'm glad she's always snubbed by the Emmys. She's done amazing work, so I'm glad she's getting her due. I'm viewing this as a Lifetime Achievement nomination, not for this specific work, because this was not her best work, right? She's amazing. She was undersung for The Good Place. She did not get enough recognition. Honestly, she should have won an Emmy for Veronica Mars, to be frank.
Yeah.
But teen shows don't get recognized, right? Like, if they did, there are some fantastic performances she could have been given Emmys for, right? I mean, I think every season of Veronica Mars, she could get an Emmy, honestly.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for her. As a celebrity, sometimes she annoys me, but I think she's a genuinely very talented person. Having said that, this is not her best work. I think the show's pretty sexist. I think it plays into anti-Semitic tropes. I'm not the first person to have said this. And it's just like, it's fine. I don't know if it's Emmy worthy. What about you?
I completely agree with you. I mean, honestly, we could do a whole episode on this show because I have so many thoughts. I think it's also interesting the timing of this show, but then oddly enough, it ended up feeling more anti-Semitic than anything in a really weird way that I found bizarre. Yeah, I think Kristen Bell and Adam Brody are kind of playing the characters they've often played, but she's so good at doing it, and it's clearly not who she is all the time because no one can be that person all the time. So I agree with you. I think she's such a good actor. Like, I'm always down for her to get nominated. And I
Mhm.
love him, so I'm happy he has one just as a friend. But I don't agree with it. I also don't agree with the show getting nominations. I don't think it's that great. I think it was just a sitcom that came at the right time. It's well made, and it's just clicking with people. And it seems like the perfect kind of thing to honor at something
Yeah.
like the Emmys right now. I also just generally speaking, I wish, I'm going to say this
Mhm.
every year, and if you're annoyed by it, that's fine. We didn't really get many Asian nominees. I was sad to see that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. For sure. There is a lack of diversity in the nominees. It's also just like, it's upsetting that I think that honestly we should have more nominees in the categories for female performances, just because
Yeah, there's so many.
there were so many riches and there's so many people who never get their due, right? And
Yeah.
I don't want to keep harping on Adam Brody having an Emmy nomination because he seems like a nice person. But if all you have to do is be a nice, handsome white man who doesn't rape people, like to get a nomination, because let's face it, the reason why he's getting a nomination, all of our nostalgia for millennials, for our teen years, is now focused on him because he and Penn Badgley were the only teen idols who haven't been accused of raping people. So we all are like, you can still like him. You can still think he's hot. Yes, give him an Emmy, right? But actually, if we were going to why doesn't Penn Badgley have a nomination? Use a much more complicated performance. Is it just because he's not as charming, or because it's a bit like he's, not playing a sexy rabbi, he's playing a character that hopefully you don't root for?
Because it feels too much like a teen show. Like it feels too much like a CW show. And it sucks because as much as that show aggravates me so deeply. But I do think Penn Badgley is such a good actor. He's so good. What I will say for Penn, now that he's free from Yu's clutches, I think he's going to hopefully develop and emerge as an actor who does maybe things with a little more depth, because he's very good. And I think he should try. And also, you know what? I feel like maybe Adam Brody could also take on some heavier subject material too. They need to expand. Like, I think they could probably both tackle drama quite well. And Penn Badgley is currently filming a very highly anticipated rom-com with Megan Fahey, star of Sirens, which I think could be really great. So I hope we get to see something there. Can we talk about Sirens? Sirens was a shit show. What was that? And that has nominations.
Megan Fahey was nominated. And she's a great actress, but that doesn't mean you have to give her a trophy for like a terrible project, right? I mean,
yeah, it was
maybe
very
people just felt bad. But no, it got lots of love. What the hell?
Strange. Yeah, it was very strange. I was surprised. You know who I would have loved to see get nominated? Speaking of the women, and God, we all know, I talk about it. I've said it. Me and Sarah both said it. We love John Hamm. I would have loved for him to get a nomination for Your Friends and Neighbors, but a little deeper cut. I would have loved Amanda Peet to get a nomination for that show.
Yeah.
She's always so good. The way the studio works, if you haven't watched it, a lot of people come on playing themselves. One of my favorite nominations this year is Martin Scorsese. He comes on and he plays himself, and he's so wonderful and he's so funny, and it's his first Emmy acting nomination. His daughter Francesca posted the cutest Instagram post of him blushing and being really sheepish about getting nominated for acting. I love him so much.
I also thought Dave Franco was quite funny. The person I thought actually gave the best cameo was Sarah Polley, and she did a lot with she didn't have that many moments, but everything was quite funny.
Oh God, I wanted to come back to acting, but yes, I totally agree. Also, another fun nominee for that show is Ike Barinholtz, who is so funny to me and has been so good forever in the Mindy Project and everything he's done since, so that's great. I have to say though, just as a final note on the Emmys, the studio getting so much love is the most hilariously ironic Hollywood thing, because the studio basically makes fun and really mocks the system, and yet here we are. It's getting all these nominations.
Yeah. Well, and that is one critique I have about Hollywood, is they love to see art about themselves, right?
They do.
And so Hacks also got a lot of nominations, and previously was the Comedy Darling, and that's also about the industry, right?
Yeah.
That's their favorite thing. And I mean, the studio is so meta that they had Matt Billany of The Town play like a key role, and then Hacks also name checks him. And I love The Town. I think it's really insightful. Buddy, who doesn't work as an entertainment journalist, listens to that podcast. And you should. I think it's great. So it's just so niche. Like, it's just made for the Emmy voters. And listen, there's a reason why it can be on Apple, because, Apple has all the money and they don't really care if people in North Dakota don't get the show and don't want to watch it, right? It's kind of like with Studio 60. And Matthew Perry wrote about that quite eloquently in his book, Why It Was Canceled, where he said, we didn't realize that it wasn't resonant, right? Because in Hollywood, if you work in comedy, if a joke doesn't hit, that feels like life or death to you. Like, because he'd spent so many years on Friends where it has to hit with the audience or you failed, right? He really felt like this was incredibly compelling content. And he said, but it's not like the presidency. It's not like, the West Wing where they were making decisions that would affect the whole world. Somebody in North Dakota who doesn't work in entertainment, who is, an ER nurse, can't come home and understand why this is such a big deal. They will just be like, guys, you should have bigger concerns, right? So I think that it's very niche. As much as I love the studio and I love Hacks, I think the fact that they get so much love is evidence of Hollywood narcissism, right? Like, I think there's no other way that you can say it. Having said that, Ike Barinholtz delivered my favorite line reading of the year when he tried to convince his female employee not to report him for harassment by saying that he had daughters, and then says next, and they are not talented and they are not smart, and I will have to support them forever. Watch the series just for that line. That line reading is art. It's art.
I can hear it in my head. He's so good. He's so good. I'm so thankful, and I'm so glad Seth Rogen pulled it. Like, he just put together the best cast. But anyway, okay, just love Seth Rogen. Okay, 10 more news bite, guys. One more. It's very juicy as well. A little reality TV news. Sarah, I know you're not in this hemisphere of TV, but hear me out. You're going to have thoughts. Okay, Jax Taylor, perhaps Bravo TV's biggest villain of all time, is finally set to leave the network. This is pretty bombshell news. To catch you up, if you don't know who he is, he's been a star of Vanderpump Rules since its inception. You might know Vanderpump Rules because of the scandal drama last year. That's where it all came from. So he left that show and then he joined The Valley recently, which is a brand new reality series, and it's a very, very good one. If you want to get into reality TV, this is just a delicious piece of television, honestly. I think it's very, very good. It follows 30-somethings in LA as they build their families. They start to move on to that next part of life. It's really excellent. But here's the thing. We were watching his married life with former co-star Brittany Cartwright. They have a young son. Jax was starting his own restaurant, except on the current second season, his abusive ways were very front and center. He admitted to a coke addiction, was alarmingly emotionally and mentally abusive toward Brittany on camera. There's one bit where he leaves the house because he's going to rehab, supposedly. It didn't seem like he was actually in rehab. And he starts watching her through the cameras in the house, and then he'll text her telling her what he's seeing and how he's catching her with other people. Anyway, his own young son even appeared afraid of him in some scenes. Again, allegedly, this is my observation. It's a lot of people's observation. But anyway, it lit up a big conversation in social media about when a network is at fault for giving abuse a platform and when it's time to cut someone loose, even if they're a ratings juggernaut. So I'm going to pull in Love Island too, because this was a huge thing on Love Island recently when there was a contestant who, before her time on the show, had made really racist remarks on social media. This became a huge thing. She was a big contestant, like a front runner, and they pulled her out at the very last minute because of this and because it turned into such a big thing on social. I don't think they would have done it otherwise. And then in another way we've seen on The Bachelor, this has happened so many times where we find out a contestant has a really abusive past, or more recently in the Bachelorette franchise, there was a guy who, did he have a restraining order? I can't remember, from his ex because he'd been abusive toward her, and they still brought him onto the show. So I guess what I'm wondering is, in what way is a network complicit when I have to assume they know to some degree, especially with Jax, because we're seeing it on air, that this person who does do great ratings is also a danger to the people in his life. Like, what do you do? Because yeah, it's interesting to watch, I'm not gonna lie, but I also feel like I'm complicit too. Sarah, what do you think?
I don't know if I would say that the viewers are complicit. I think viewers kind of blaming themselves. This is how they package it, right? They give us what we want, right? It's kind of like targeted Instagram ads when people are like, oh, it's your fault, you're a compulsive shopper. I'm like, oh, everyone's getting these targeted ads all the time, right? You talk about something and then you get an ad for it. I think that when we're introduced to a character and we're accustomed to seeing them, like, it is their responsibility to cut everyone off and to say, okay, we know that he's abusive. I think it's their responsibility. Obviously, he shouldn't be on TV. He shouldn't have a platform. This is troubling. But this is also common, as you said, on The Bachelor. Almost every season, there's some super sketchy guy who turns out is either incredibly racist or some sort of a sex predator. I mean, they've had people who are sexual predators on the show, right? And I don't know I think they don't know. I think they just aren't doing their research properly because you're actually putting someone in peril if they say, okay, and now you have to go on a date with this person who is a sexual predator, right? I don't know why they don't do their due diligence with reality TV, because you'd think that eventually they're going to suffer a huge lawsuit from this, right? Some sort of class action lawsuit, and money talks.
I feel like reality TV is just a completely lawless environment. Drama sells. And here's the thing. Each of those times on The Bachelor, it does better when we find out that news. On Love Island, the show was doing super well when we found out that news. And the same thing for The Valley right now and for Vanderpump Rules. I'm not going to lie. I've been watching these shows forever. I'm more tuned in when I see that because I want to know what's going to happen. But at the same time, for the specific case, when you give that person a platform, it almost feels like you're fueling them. You're encouraging them because he knows when he is this way, people keep watching. And then he becomes more of a name. He becomes more of a trending topic, quite literally. So then what? I think it's really fascinating. I always go back to that great show, Unreal. Do you remember that? It was great for a season.
Oh my God.
Really
first 2 seasons
unraveled.
are actually pretty good. Good. And Constance Zimmer, a goddess.
Where is she? Yeah, it was a great little show.
Give her more work.
Yeah, I'm sure you can find it somewhere. We'll find out where, but it was a little behind the scenes look. It was a dramatic version of what it's like being a producer behind the scenes of reality TV, specifically The Bachelor, Bachelorette. And it was made by someone who was a former Bachelor producer. So I felt like we were getting a lot of real tips there. And it was wild the way that they would manipulate and kind of push for really terrible hijinks to ensue. And I imagine that's what it's like for real. So I don't know. Sometimes I just wonder, we will kind of watch anything, but also there's got to be a better way to kind of cut these people out. I will say the Love Island production team, since the show wrapped earlier this week, they said they're going to change their processes for how they evaluate bringing in candidates and their new cast. I don't know what that actually means and if that's a real thing they're going to do. Let's see.
I'm sad that this is still happening, but the point you made is very valid, which is maybe they've done the calculus. Maybe they realize that the attention it brings and the ratings it brings make them more money than a possible lawsuit would lose them, right? And TV is a business, and it's a very cynical business. So you're right that maybe they are actively finding people who have these problems, or they're just not disqualifying people when they identify the problems, because they know that if it comes out, if anything, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing for their ratings, not necessarily for the people. But they keep picking people who, even if they don't have a history of violence, have some emotional instability, and then sometimes later have a history of violence. I'm reminded of Colton, who was the Bachelor.
Yes.
And what he did to the winner of his season, Cassie, after they broke up. He stalked her. And then he tried to justify it by saying, well, actually, it's that I'm queer and I was closeted and I've come out. I'm like, yeah, but you can be a queer person and still abuse women, right? That doesn't mean it. We can't whitewash it by saying I only did this because I was closeted, because, okay, that's a separate thing.
Yeah.
Many closeted men who have relationships with women do not abuse them, and the courts do not need to get involved.
That's a great reference. Thank you for mentioning that. And then he went on a whole press run for coming out. It was hard to swallow. And the one other thing that I'll add to this is that if you're thinking these networks just aren't catching these bits, they're catching them, because if you look at it this way, when, for instance, the news about the man with the restraining order from his abused ex came out for The Bachelorette, that was something that people just found by themselves online and posted on Twitter and Reddit. If the average person can find it, then ABC executives found it. You know what I mean?
They found it. And those producers, the people who would be in charge of researching it, sort of probably the lower level people, they make them do the impossible all the time. So there's no way they're not finding this. These people are very good at their jobs. They'll tell them literally, go find a date in Hawaii for the lead and Cassie, and make sure that everything's comped, it's free, and get a weird private concert from some B-list country star, right? And they deliver every week, right? So these are people who are good at their jobs. I find it hard to believe people with those research skills wouldn't also be able to do a background check. I'm not sure who's doing the background check. It could just be the HR department, but internally at the corporate headquarters of ABC, you're not hearing about a ton of rapists being hired. So I'm sure their HR department also can flag things.
100%. ABC, Bravo, whoever it is, please do better. Do better. Do better by
Disney,
us.
because ABC is owned by Disney. Stop putting women in dangerous situations with abusers. And same thing, Bravo with Jax. Okay, all right. Try not to create another Jax, Bravo.
And by the way, the show is good without him. You know, it's kind of like comedians who resort to the most low-hanging fruit to get a laugh. Work a little harder. If it's that easy, it's probably not got that much depth. If you can actually find better cast members, better drama that's a little smarter, you don't have to resort to something like abuse to be the key. He's been away for a few episodes because he was in rehab, and the show was wonderful without him because there were so many other things to dig into. That's all I'm saying. There's ways to do it. And if you can do it, then you can probably be a long-running drama that gets a little more respect, which isn't a bad thing. Anyway, that's my spiel. And that's this week's episode. Thank you to all of our gorgeous listeners. You can listen to The Reheat for free on the Seeker app. You can also find the show on the Frequency Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to hear more from me, you can find me on Twitter at _Staphason. Sarah, where can our listeners find you?
Listeners can find me on Twitter at Sarah Sahagian. And if you liked this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe so other listeners can find us too. And if you would like us to keep growing, we'd love for you to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thereheat, where we've got some goods in store for you. Thanks for listening.